Hello, and welcome to another episode of your favourite metal podcast, Talking Bollocks, or, as they would say across the pond in North America, podcast. So, hello, I am your host. Let's do this. Come on, the intro that I can never stop myself doing. My name is Howard H. Smith. I am the lead singer of UK thrash band Acid Rain. When I started this podcast, it was... I used to be, and I'm back doing it again now. That's right, the band has come back in that time, and last year, 2019, we released The Age of Entitlement, first album for 29 years, and I also do stand-up. I've been doing stand-up for 26 years, longer than I've actually been in Acid Rain. Well, given that we had lots of time off. You can check out my comedy, keithplatt.co.uk. Does anybody use websites anymore? Acid Rain don't. Shut ours. No point. And I do this here podcast. I do spoken word shows, the tales from the secret history of thrash. So yeah, that's me. That's what I do. And if you listen regularly, you're sick of hearing all this. So let's move on. Hello and happy Winter Festival. Happy Hanukkah. Happy Christmas. Happy atheists getting pissed and eating lots of food and giving people presents. Happy everything to all of you, wherever you are over this festive period. I'm sure it's not the usual situation that you're in. It's certainly not for me either. All the various Christmas parties not happening. So, as usual, I'm delivering you a 2-part Christmas special for you to listen to. And now, normally, the reason I do this is so you've got something to listen to over Christmas, so you can stick your earplugs in and, earbuds, not plugs, let's face it. If you stuck earplugs in, you wouldn't be able to hear. You fucking dickhead, Howard. Yeah, all right, it's early doors, don't start having a go at me yet. Okay, but get it right. Earbuds, okay? So, earbuds, so you can just basically tune out the relatives. Well, no need, because they're not coming round, are they? That's the way it goes, depending on what the restrictions are and whatever the part of the world you live in. So, what has been... Yeah, it's the same old format, don't you worry about that. What has been happening in the world of metal since we last spoke? Well, I've been listening to the new Killer Be Killed album, Reluctant Hero, and it's really growing on me. I can recommend that to everybody. And something that was a really nice surprise that I didn't know was coming out and is excellent is the Soilwork EP. Now, Soilwork have brought out an EP called A Wisp of the Atlantic. It's a strange title. It's almost the kind of title that a band whose first language isn't English could only come up with. And that's not me being arsey. It's not a criticism, and it's just an observation. Honest, I promise. I mean, I can't speak any other language than English, so I am in no position to be having a go at anybody. And I'm not having a go. Shit, God, I'm going to get myself in trouble here. So, yeah, it's great, basically, is what I'm saying. First track, okay, just a heads up, first track is 16 minutes long. There's another 4 that aren't anywhere near as long as that, but and it's progressive, it's proggy. There's some real risks being taken, which is a pleasure to hear, and definitely worth checking that out. So please do that. What else has been happening? Well, obviously been doing the Sepultura specials. They're all done now, and they've gone down really, really well. Thank you to everybody. If you're here because you found out about the podcast because of those, thank you, welcome. It's nice to have you aboard, and stay with me and get on Patreon. Patreon.com/Howard H. Smith. Yes, that's right. I forgot to mention that at the beginning. If you're listening to this, whatever device you're listening to this on, there'll be a description in the podcast. It'll say support this podcast. Tap that. It's a live link and it can take you straight to Patreon, where you can sign up for $5 a month. You get this podcast early. You get your own podcast that doesn't appear live. You get a radio show once a month. You get a live Zoom once a month. You get to ask questions of the interviewees, and it's fun. It's great, and it's bloody cheap, even though I say so myself. So do that anyway. Where were we? Oh yes. So the Sepultura specials, they were great. I tell you what. Another slight technical malfunction there. Never mind. But I tell you what, I couldn't believe, right, was as soon as that episode with Derek came out, straight away on Sepultura's Instagram were at least 2 comments from people saying, "Oh, you're not the proper singer in Sepultura. No, you're not the. And I just thought, let it go. Fucking hell. How many years is it now? You know, it's what, 26, 27 years, whatever it is. I mean, just let it go. Give the guy a break. He's done nothing to deserve that. Absolutely nothing. I mean, the guy owns. Fucking Quadra's amazing. And there's other great albums of Sepultura with Derek on as well. Rawback, to mention just one, and Machine Messiah. But anyway, we do in this heavy metal community that we love to hold a grudge. We really do. We love to hold a grudge, and we will keep holding it. But then again, people within metal within bands seem to love holding a grudge. You know, I mean. Well, anyway, I'm not going to start mentioning all that shit. But anyway, I just found it unbelievable. I mean, who really takes time out of their day to tell Derek Green that he's not really the singer in Sepultura after he's been doing it for 26 years? You know, it just beggars belief, I believe the phrase is. Anyway, next up, Clown is teasing another potential Slipknot album again. I mean, whether or not we're going to get that, I can't see how we've been waiting 3 and 4 years for Slipknot albums, and all of a sudden we're going to get one, you know, right away. And yes, obviously we've had the pandemic and everything else, but well, who knows? Corey Taylor put his solo album out, so you know, he's obviously getting in the studio somewhere. In other news. I have been gifted the Rob Halford book, Confessions, and it is I've been gifted the audio book actually, so I'm going to be listening to that as I drive up north for my Christmas break, and it's 12 hours, so it's not the drive. Fucking hell, I'll be dead. But no, the book is 12 hours long, so I'm really looking forward to that, and it's a book I've been meaning to get, and it was gifted to me by a friend who I don't hear much from, and it just appeared out of the blue, and it was really, really cool. I love it when stuff like that happens. So anyway, yeah, I've got that, and obviously I'll be coming back to you and letting you know what I think. Not that you care, but you know, whatever. So anyway, next up, the Dio hologram would tour if it wasn't losing money. That is the claim of one of the guys who plays in the Dio hologram band. Now, all I can say is, and he said basically, you know, it would tour more, and it would tour if it wasn't losing money. And personally, I would say, well, there's your answer. I mean, isn't that basically market forces? Isn't that the heavy metal community saying, no, just no, we do not want to see a hologram of Ronnie Dio. He has passed. Let's let it go. But no, you know, they're still plugging away. And look, you know, I've gone on about this plenty for those of you who've been listening for a while. I mean, it's one step up from a cartoon as far as I'm concerned, and it's just no. Yeah, just no. I think that's really all I've got. After I've gone on and on and on about this for fucking years, that is all I have at the moment. Okay, but I'll tell you what. Talking about going on for years and years, and just going on about things for years and years, not having anything else. Well, it's an article on Blabbermouth from Brian Tatler telling you how to play Am I Evil? Yeah, that's right. Because if you've tried to learn Am I Evil from listening to the record, I'm sure you couldn't figure it out because it's so complex. I mean, you know, bless. It's got to be done, I guess, if you got something like that. But yeah, I mean, really. I mean, surely there's a tab somewhere. But anyway, it's the pandemic, isn't it? It's the pandemic. Anyway, everybody is doing whatever they can to keep themselves and other people amused. And I guess Brian Tatler taking the time out to show people how to learn Am I Evil it's actually quite a nice thing to do, isn't it? I am going to completely talk myself round on this. And you know what I do sometimes. I'll start out in a position, and then as I'm starting to hear the words fall out of my mouth, bloody hell, then I realise that I may be actually being a dick, and I'm prepared to change my opinion. Sometimes you have an opinion in your head, okay, and then it comes out of your mouth, and you hear that opinion out loud, and you go, "Oh, fucking hell! Actually, that's wrong," or I'm a bit of a dick, or that's not very nice, or whatever. I mean, look, all I'm saying is I'm just being self-reflective, okay? And now I've put those words out there, I'm actually being a bit of a dick. There's nothing to criticise here whatsoever, is there, really? It's just a nice thing to do, especially around this time of year, and people, guitarists sat around stuck at home during the pandemic. They may well want to learn Am I Evil, and they may want to learn it from Brian, and he's done a nice and instructional video, and Mr. fucking Loudmouth here, all I've got is negativity and criticism. What a twat. What an absolute twat. I take it back, Brian. I do apologise. It's a nice thing to do. And what have we got coming from Anthrax? Well, like most other metal bands, it would be yet more versions of alcohol. That's right. That's right. It's another whiskey from those lovely people in Anthrax. Another whiskey. And so I find myself actually in the position, and I am about to say this, I find myself taking my hat off and taking your hat off. I take my hat off to you, sir. Hats off. That is such an old phrase, isn't it? That really does. That goes back to when people used to wear hats all the time, like, bowler hats, top hats, all that shit. And people used to celebrate, and the highest regard of celebration, the highest level of celebration was taking your hat off and throwing it in the air. We've all seen it on like old footage and films and shit like that. And for some reason, it's still kicking around for hundreds and hundreds of years. And and now I'll even say, now you don't even need a hat. It's just hats off, isn't it? Well, funnily enough, my hat is off all the time. I very rarely wear a hat. So presumably I'm just hats off all the time. So in fact, I'm going to go the other way. Hats on to what a fucking tangent. Hats on to Bullet for My Valentine, who are releasing a spiced mead. That's right. You heard me. It's the Bullet for My Valentine Christmas spiced mead. I shall have more mead for my lord. It's one of those drinks, isn't it? We're going back hundreds of years now. Bloody hell, it was hats going in the air. Now it's fucking a kingly banquet with mead. I shall have more mead. Serving wench, bring me more weed. Sorry. Serving non-binary human. I'd like some fucking mead, please. I'm sorry, I'm going to cough my guts up here. And nobody wants to hear that. It's spiced mead from Bullet for My Valentine, and I just think, well, fuck it, why not? I mean, if you're going to bring some alcohol out, you've got to try and do something a little bit different, and Bullet for My Valentine have pulled it off. They really, really have. Now, what I'm doing with this Christmas special is I wanted to get people on who are not necessarily in bands, because we've all pretty much had the same kind of experience in lockdown, as it were. That's not to say I won't be having any more bands on. I'm not having. I will be. I'll be having loads. And as already mentioned in the description of the podcast, my guest this week is singing teacher to the stars and me, Beth Roars. That is her professional kind of moniker, as it were. We got together last year before the tour. Well, I say before the tour, we had 4 dates, and it was the first time I'd sung the new stuff, so I wanted to just go in and have a little bit of brush up. I mean, I hadn't had any singing lessons for over 20 years, and well, anyway, you're going to hear, because we talk about we talk about everything during the course of the interview. Now, I am going to crack on and get this interview into your ears. This is myself and Beth having a chat a few weeks ago.
Hello.
Hello, is that Beth?
It is Beth. Imagine if it wasn't.
Yeah, that would be weird, wouldn't it?
That would be awkward, yeah.
Yeah, ever so slightly.
Yeah.
So, well, look, hello, how are you?
I'm good, yeah. Yeah, just getting on. I'm actually in Scotland.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I moved up for lockdown part 2.
Ah, right, okay. Well, I guess, yeah, you're not kind of tied to London while it's virtual, isn't it?
Yeah, right now at the moment everything's online, so I just thought it might be nice to be somewhere where there's some greenery before. So yeah, I thought you'd be like, oh, you're in a different place. How about you?
Well, I'm still, I'm in London still, and I've paid a few trips back to Yorkshire to see my mum and look after her. But no, I'm still in London. It's where I am, and to be honest, I could be anywhere at the moment. There's obviously no live work about, but it's it is what it is. You seem to have, from the emails I've been getting, because obviously I'm on your email list and stuff. It would seem that you've kind of adjusted the business completely online. Has it? Is it still the same volume, or has it just kind of? Well, I presume it's just sort of found its own footing.
Well, I was kind of lucky because it had been online before for me. A lot of it, or half my business, had been online. So to move my kind of London students online wasn't such a big deal. And everyone, knows what's going on right now, so no one was that worried about it. But also, actually, I ended up being more busy in my teaching because I think everyone was bored in lockdown, especially during the first lockdown. Everyone was just like, well, I'm going to use this as an opportunity to learn to sing. So I was absolutely packed for a while. And I've ended up, I've just been very, very lucky with it. I've ended up having to kind of cut down my available hours a bit. Otherwise, I just ended up staring at a screen for hours and hours on end.
Yeah, that's a bit too much like an office job for what you do, really, isn't it?
Yes. I mean, it is really lovely, and I do really enjoy it. There's something that's kind of different about online lessons, which means in some ways, I think it's almost more focused. Like, I can really focus in on things more so than when you're in an in-person lesson and you get more of a general feel, and there's lots of, environmental things that are kind of capturing your attention. So there are pros and cons to both. There's, of course, the internet falling apart whenever it wants to. It can be a pain, or, the amount of times that someone's had a power cut, or just the audio won't work, and sometimes trying to teach an 8-year-old online can be a bit of a pain. Trying to get them to organize all their, backing tracks and things like that. So
yeah, that must be with the technical side of it must be a constant challenge. Let's just put it that way.
Yes. Well, some people are so on top of it. Like, some people are so good, like much better than I am, and then some people have, like, there's some people that I don't know how they survive in the modern world, to be quite honest.
I know what you mean.
I'm like, they're like, I don't know how to change the tab. I'm like, what? But I won't say any names, but they probably know who they are.
Yeah, but the thing is, it's like, lockdown and everything else. Everybody has had to really up their game with their tech skills. Otherwise, you're just going to get left behind.
Yeah, and it's quite a lot for some people as well. If it's just not something you're naturally inclined to, for sure. But I think it's going to change everything with I don't know how we work, and maybe even for us being performers, it's still I guess a portion may stay online more. I don't know.
I really hope not. I mean, from the comedy side of things, I haven't done any. I mean, I've done 2 shows this year that were live in a venue, which was in September. But I can't. certainly from a comedy point of view, I can't do it. I can't be, sat at home or stood in front of a screen ranting about stuff, delivering comedy without that, without that audience reaction, without that live feel, without those people in a room.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
It is bizarre. It's really weird. Some of my subscribers have been saying about you should do online streaming on Twitch, and I've been avoiding it because it feels really weird to me, just sitting in my room singing to a computer screen.
Yeah.
So maybe I will do it eventually. I don't know. It just feels like the most bizarre thing, and I find that something about it is a little bit more stressful. It's more easy to get kind of caught in your own head about everything because you can't really be in the moment in the same way that you are with an audience, I guess.
Yeah, and also the it's the feedback from the crowd as well. I mean, certainly from a comedy point of view, from a music point of view, being on stage, being able to see into people's eyes, being able to see what's going on, and also you're all in the same environment. So whereas online, everyone is in a different environment, and from a comedy point of view, because of people's varying internet speeds, some people are laughing before others, and it's just a complete non-experience. And gig wise, I mean, it's really not the same.
Yeah, I get that. I really miss it as well, though. I really miss. It's silly the little things that you miss, like going to a restaurant or going. I don't know. It's all these tiny things. Like I saw someone was in an airport the other day on Facebook, and I was like, I just want to be in an airport. That's all. I don't even want to go anywhere. Just go.
I want to be sat eating the most overpriced, crappiest breakfast ever and washing it down with a massively expensive beer at 5 a.m. in something that resembles a supermarket that is sprung up in the middle of nowhere.
Exactly.
I just want to have that feeling again.
Yeah, exactly. But hopefully we're on to with vaccines and stuff. Hopefully there's an end to it now, so that's good.
Yeah. No, I hope so. And it's funny what you mentioned there about performing, and I mean, obviously to me you are my singing teacher, despite the fact that obviously full disclosure to those listening, I've only ever had 2 lessons with you, and that was about this time last year, which is bizarre because it feels like yesterday, but. You're a performer in your own right as well, and in what capacity? Are you part of a group? Is it on your own?
Yeah, well, I've done lots of different performance throughout my life. I started as a performer. I started as a singer doing musicals, so kind of West Endy stuff. And then I went into teaching, and I've always kind of kept it going, mostly doing jazz gigs. Really, I've done a lot of jazz gigs, and then nowadays I just do the odd. As I say, I've been doing some on my YouTube channel, and so I really don't have a very set you do this. If someone was like, "Come and do this singing job," I'd be like, "Of course." So it's just kind of whatever turns up.
Right.
But I haven't been doing. I mean, obviously, I haven't been doing much for the last year or so, but that kind of really makes sense. So, as if that is something that everyone has not been doing as well. It's just something that I've kind of kept doing. I've kept performing alongside, and I think it's really important for my teaching as well to, be able to do it and keep my skills up as well. Yeah,
keep your chops up. So at what point did Beth Roars take shape? Do you was it a particular moment where you maybe saw a singing teacher doing doing a critique of someone's vocals and thought, hey, I could do that? How did it all come about?
Yeah, well, I was working as a musical director for a cruise ship company, and I just quit that job. I decided that I didn't want to do that anymore, and I didn't know what to do.
Hang on. How long? I've got to stop you. How long did you do that for?
I did that for maybe 2-3 years.
Yeah, it doesn't strike me as a job that you can stay in long term.
Yeah, well, I wasn't on the ships. I was in London, and I kind of and then taught the cast it. But it's so intense because you're just constantly in the rehearsal period of the shows. You don't kind of get the fun bit of doing the shows. You're just organising all these rehearsals, and it is fun in a lot of ways. But there's a lot. It's got to be done really quickly, and it's not always in the best environment, and it is quite a stressful job from that sense. And as soon as you finish working with one cast, there's another cast going out, and you're writing the show for the next cast. So it just, I was absolutely knackered by the time I finished that job. And it just, so I kind of ramped up my teaching again at that point, and I was like, right, I don't really know what I'm doing. And a friend said, I've seen people doing like a vocal coach react, and there was just maybe 1 or 2 people doing it at that time. There wasn't very many people. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. That's tacky. I'm definitely not going to do that. was my response. And then I was like, and she was like, oh, give it a go. And then I was like, fine, I'll do a couple of videos. It's fun, fine. So I did like a few videos, and it was a few down the line. Well, actually, in the first week, a couple of people wanted lessons from me, and I was like, oh, well, okay, maybe it is a good thing. And I didn't really expect it to be that big, I had like a few hundred views across videos. And then suddenly I had this one video that randomly just went massive in the Philippines. And as the YouTube algorithm decides, when it wants to decide. Yeah. And that was that. And I was like, oh goodness, people are actually watching this, so I should actually try and make this look all right. Yeah. That's how it happened.
So you sort of reversed engineered it. It's like everyone decided it was worth watching, so you kind of then had to go back and give it a bit of gleam, a bit of professionalism.
I was terrible to begin with. I didn't have a microphone. I had it was like my camera was on this weird setting because I didn't really know how to use it, so it was all orange and grainy. And then I was like, right, I need to learn how to do these things. So just kind of bit by bit tried to improve it as I go along, and it's been the last, again, maybe 3 years, 2 to 3 years that I've been doing that now. So and now I'm kind of trying to, I guess, like anything, I get easily bored, so I'm trying to do different types of videos now again. So I'm looking more into the science of singing and the psychology behind singing and stuff like that. So there's always, I can't do the same thing for too long. I have to change it.
Yeah, I know. I'm an ADHD diagnosed myself, so I know all about that. And not that not that you are. I'm just saying. But I mean, I know what you mean, though. I mean, it's like if you go back to my podcast one. I mean, I've done about 130 podcasts now, and but you got to go back to number one, and it's a prime example of anybody can do it. I mean, it's calamitous, and it's for me, it's unlistenable. I'm just cringing. Whereas, and now here we are, 5 years on or whatever it is, and I'm hosting the the official Motorhead podcast, and this seems to be getting some real traction as well, and it's just. But I guess that's how you do it, isn't it? It's. My theory was there's no point in putting a ton of work and planning in if this is going to be a dead loss. So you just kind of do it and see what happens. And then when you start getting a reaction, it's kind of like, right, okay, so let's put some resources into this.
Yes, exactly. And you just don't know until you do it what's going to happen and if it's going to be received well. So you just might as well just give it a shot and see, and then, as you say, backwards kind of learn how to do everything. But and also, I just never expected anything to kind of take off that much. Yeah. So you just don't know. And with YouTube, it's certainly changing all the time with the algorithms and things like that. So they're really down to, like, all the time it's down to the algorithm gods, really, whether stuff gets boosted or not, and sent to a certain amount of people or not. So you don't really know, as you go along, what's going to happen. Anyway, hope for the best.
And that is the downside of anyone who's running any kind of business, that involves YouTube, because ultimately it might be your business, but it's their platform, and they can do what they like, when they like. They can change terms on you whenever they like, and you pretty much have no power. And you just I feel for you, really do, because it's in the back end. It's not only is it a mystery, but it's also a constantly changing mystery. Yes,
yeah. It's really interesting as well, is the thing, because, everything in the past has been reaction videos. So obviously, I'll be reacting to an artist and you're using clips of their music. And there's been a constantly changing movement around copyright. Yeah. So at first, seemed, when I first did it, really, really fine. I ended up getting the monetization for all of it, mostly. Yeah. Then it kind of started that people were sharing it, which seems completely fair to me. So the artist gets half, and the person who does the reaction gets half.
Yep.
Which I was like, right, that seems fair. And then now it's actually since COVID, and I suspect it's just companies panicking about not having as much money and stuff. But everything has been like, we will take all the money off everything, and it's been really interesting as well, because of the system, anyone can say that they own the copyright to your video, and then you have to dispute it. Yeah. But for that time, YouTube is then taking the money, the ad money, and so anyone can say, and they might just get a little bit, and so there's probably some sharks out there just claiming random people all the time. Yeah. Because sometimes I'm like, well, this is definitely not the record label for that person. Yes. So there's all the things like that which can be a little bit dodgy with it, but you don't really know, especially with those ones, what you're going to get back from it. Whereas, some videos I can be like, well, I know I'm going to get all the money from that video. Yeah, or,
yeah. No, I've seen that as well, and it is what really does my head in is when if you use music and the record label block it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, really, guys? Do you know how the internet works? Do you know how the music business works these days?
Yeah.
It's like, what, you want no money instead of some money?
Yeah, it is really strange. Why would they block it? It doesn't. Because also as well, there's some artists from the reaction video scene have really come through that. There's especially some of them, like Ginger, that metal artist. She is that band, because there's been so many reactions of Ginger Pisces. Yeah. That was part of the fuel that lifted that song.
Well, there's loads of people who only know Ginger because of the reaction videos.
Yeah. So, if those things start getting blocked, then it's bizarre to me.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think there's so many reaction videos now, so many people doing them, and from various perspectives, like young rappers listening to metal for the first time, and metalers listening to rap for the first time, and we've all seen them. But do you know what? I'm such a sucker. I get drawn in. I really do. And there's nothing like reaction videos to draw you into a YouTube rabbit hole.
Yeah. It is something really watchable about it. There's one that I love. There's this guy, this British priest.
What?
Reacts and stuff. Yeah, no, but he's also really sweet, and he's always like, oh, it's kind of nice. And I just really enjoy watching this priest watch Billie Eilish and be like, well, it's using devil imagery there. I'm like, oh.
Yes, it's that's just a million miles away from what you do.
It's so funny.
But it is. I watched a video the other day, and it's this young, and I say young, he's about 13, 14, black kid living in like in the deep south in the States, and he's doing a reaction video to a Metallica song that came out in like 1991 or something, and a friend of his had told him to listen to it because he listened to it a lot when his granddad died and all this, and I was thinking, well, I've got to watch this, and this kid just stops the song about 4 or 5 minutes in, and he's just bursts into tears, and he just can't stop crying, and he's like talking about how the music's making him feel, but there's a set of lyrics that are particularly poignant and all this, and I was just thinking, it's like it's incredible to see the reach of people's music, and I just love seeing music affect people that, inverted commas, you'd never have thought it would affect. Do you know what I mean? It's like, this really, really old Metallica song, and they're in their 60s now, and there's this kid crying his eyes out to music of theirs that is, considerably older than he is. And I don't know, there's just something about those contrasting videos where it's people from a particular kind of musical background venturing into different musical areas. That's always what kind of fascinates me.
I think it's something that just shows how connected people are by music. It's so kind of heartwarming, isn't it?
Yeah, it's universal.
Yeah, it's really, really lovely to see that, for sure.
And
but I don't know.
Sorry, go on.
No, it's like a weird genre. I was about to say that it is beautiful, and there is so much that's really lovely about it. I wonder what the future is. I'm always for it. Will it be a thing that people continue to watch, or will that be a thing that people step back from? I don't know. I think because at some point, is it going to be a fad that eventually people move on to something else?
Yeah, and I mean, well, unboxing videos, they're still going.
Yeah, that's true.
And who thought that would have been a thing?
Yeah, well, maybe that's because of the companies, though.
Yes,
give the products. They fund those ones.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And funnily enough, going back to that Ginger video, I remember watching you reacting to that video, and because I knew what was coming, and it's priceless. Presumably, you like watching other people kind of react as well, because it's kind of When you initially heard that, I mean, you can tell on your face that you're so shocked. What do you do? Does your brain just instantly start trying to break down? How is she doing that?
Yeah, well, a little bit. I find it really hard to not have my singing teacher head, but there are ones that I'll just be I can't even think about it in that way because I'm just enjoying it so much. Something like that, though, I just want to learn. I'm like, what? How do you do that? And when it's for her, I guess the thing is that it's so contrasting with her. You don't expect that. You just don't expect a woman to be able to make that big a distorted sound. Yeah. And then when she does, you're like, oh wow, that doesn't look like it comes from her.
Yeah. It's the guttural nature of it, isn't it? You just that's the kind of what throws you, because it's so guttural. Yes, it's
got that depth to it, and then the earlier parts as well. She's singing so kind of nicely and cleanly, and that contrast is very a shocking moment,
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I must admit, I haven't been doing much singing in the house in lockdown.
Have you not?
No, but funnily, do you know what? It took a while, but my head voice clicked. I don't know how or why, but it clicked, and I realised that over the years I've been doing it, but never knowing what it was, and literally kind of thinking, oh, that's odd. I'm I'm singing, but I'm kind of that's a bit weird. But it was almost like I kind of slipped into it. But
yeah,
it's really, really odd.
I'd say it's so interesting as well because a lot of the parts of our voice we already know how to make those sounds. It's just identifying when we already do it. So that's why I often get people to do like the woo-hoo and things like that, because that is essentially your head voice making like a little party noise, and then it's working out like, that's what that sound feels like in my body, which is a bizarre thing. And it's so bizarre because everyone feels things differently as well. So it can be interesting as a teacher, just having to be like, well, how do you feel that? Where in your body do you feel that? Or some people feel the real resonance of the sound, and some people feel the actual like muscular movement, so like the shapes they're making with their mouth and their vocal tracts and things like that. So it's just really interesting because some people are like, oh, I feel it in my ears. I'm like, oh, cool. I've never felt the music in my ears, but yeah, no, why not?
I couldn't tell you. I mean, I don't think. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of like, open mouth voice, noise come out, and it's kind of like that's the end of it. But even in those couple of lessons we had, you managed to point out a couple of invaluable things, like bad habits that I'd got into. Like my breathing was just ludicrous. And that was the thing that you pointed out that made a massive difference. Yeah. Because I was, and funnily enough, I spoke to another singer about this, and I explained how I used to sing, which is take a breath and then sing until you think you're going to run out of breath, and then take another one.
Yeah.
And he was like, yeah, what's wrong with that? And I'm like, oh no, dude, no, it turns out that's not how to do it.
It's so funny though, because there's like so many like kind of universal. It's so counterintuitive, a lot of singing, in that you feel it's like life. It's like a life lesson. Like you feel like the more effort you put in, the better it's going to be.
Yeah.
And it's often we do that in every aspect of life and singing and whatever. And often it's not really that. It's finding like the kind of the most efficient way to do it. Often it's and then it becomes easy, and then you're like, aha, that's when you've got it good.
Well, again, you pointed out the tension in my jaw.
Yeah.
And it's that kind of like I don't know, just a natural tension, and I was kind of nodding along when you were saying that, because I was thinking, no, it's almost not putting any effort, but you need to put the effort into, or I need to put the effort into kind of relaxing and just letting it happen.
But everyone is the same. I mean, I'm just trying to think if I have a student who doesn't. The only time that really people don't do that is when they're really shy or nervous to sing out, don't put enough kind of just energy behind it. But often, actually, that still manifests in some sort of physical tension.
Yeah.
And it's still it's just a symptom of the same thing, just not allowing your voice to do what it can do. You're holding it back in some way. And some of us will like mentally go full force into it, but then use our muscles to kind of hold it back.
Yes. Yeah. So have you ever picked up a client from a video that you have done a review of?
Oh yes, loads.
Oh really?
Loads. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. Do you mean of the actual person?
I mean the actual artist.
Yes, I actually. Yeah. Well, I kind of have had a client, but we haven't had a lesson. They were like, we will. They were like, will you give me a lesson? And then they did not. So have a lesson yet. So maybe one day. So I thought you meant like as a general person. But
no.
So yeah, there was someone who I also had on my podcast actually, who came on and was like, who was from Afghanistan and wanted to do some songs in English, and was like, but then I don't know, COVID happened, so who knows what happened. But yeah, that was the only one, I think. The cool thing though has been able to interview and talk to people from my reactions. Right. So like a lot of people who I've reacted to have either like got in touch, or someone that they know has got in touch, and it's just been amazing to talk to the people from within.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, there was a really cool one. There was someone who was doing it was an Alice in Chains, a person who was doing a kind of cover of Alice in Chains.
Yeah.
And they were working with a really big band, and had been watching my videos to learn how to be like Lane Staley. So that was interesting, and he was from a really cool band. Well, I'm not going to say because I don't know if he'd want me to. But anyway, but that was so there's cool stuff like that has happened.
Wow, I'm trying to sing like Lane Staley. No thanks.
Yeah, well, exactly. Yeah, and he's been like, yeah, I've been watching lots of videos to try and find out how to do it. So
yeah, that'll work.
Yeah.
yeah. Just take a little look inside his throat and head there, and you'll be fine. Yeah, it's not like drumming. You know, it's not like a guitarist. You can't watch someone's technique and copy it and be closer to them as an artist, is it? It's you know, well, we're all our own unique individual little snowflakes, aren't we? And we've, you know, everyone's got their own little things they can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I wanted to ask you about a particular singer who's a favourite of mine, which is Mike Patton from Faith No More.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I've seen you do a few of his reactions.
Yeah.
And it's, I mean, I'm a massive fan of his. But the weird thing is, when you say that, it's kind of like, right, okay, but which version of Mike Patton are you talking about? You know? Yeah. I mean, it's like, it's so weird because he can be a crooner, he can be a screamer, he can do I don't think there's a thing he can't do. He can rap, he can do the lot.
He is someone who's obviously incredibly versatile, and I do find there's like, two types of maybe personalities, not really singers. There's people who really capitalize on their own uniqueness, and there are people who are like super versatile and are able to kind of just like Flora Nightwish. She's kind of like that, who can swap between different styles really quickly. However, he's kind of been able to be both, in that like he's so unique because he's so versatile, and kind of because he puts everything in at once, it becomes this kind of bizarre but amazing thing to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. Because you can have him on you can have him putting together a soundtrack for a movie. You know, a beautiful lilting soundtrack, and then he'll do like something. I mean, he did an EP back in the day with Dillinger Escape Plan, which is just like pig squeals and all sorts. It's just mental. But the variety is absolutely astounding. And funnily enough, what you were talking about there about people who capitalise on what they do and being really good at it. I'm always struck by Maynard from Tool as to how he uses his voice, because he's got such an amazing range. But again, he likes to travel around the genres. And just kind of try and expand on that. For someone like myself, it's amazing. You know, they are people to sort of look up to and try and emulate. But again, it depends on it also depends on the confines of the music you're working in. Yeah,
it's interesting. Well, I was talking to an accent coach actually recently about this, and she was talking about how we really love things as humans that meet our expectations. That you can't just go and sing like a blues song, because we're talking about accents within music, and you can't really go and sing, or like it's kind of weird to go and rap in a Scottish accent, right? For example, because it doesn't meet our expectations, so we don't like it. But however, what I have also been thinking about a lot is that we do like something that's got like a slight. It has to kind of meet our expectations, but also be slightly different for it to be like awesome. So we want it to be like, yeah, we're comfortable with that, and then it's got a little edge. And people who are really, really great are just toe that line really, really well of like, right, we understand this thing, but there's something really weird about us at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's giving you that warm feeling of what you expected, but then it gives you a nice little surprise of something that is just slightly edgy, so it's something left of centre that you're not expecting.
I mean, certainly certainly for like mainstreaming stuff. I feel like Mike Patton, he's his own thing. he's kind of so everywhere that like. But then I guess that's also why he has like a very like cult following, but not perhaps a mainstream following.
Yeah, very much so. I remember, I think I was watching it might have been a reaction you did fairly recently actually, where he's singing and he's singing the choruses, he's rapping the verses, he's screaming as well, and at one point he's got the mic. He's kind of got his head back and he's sort of screaming, and then he just drops the mic and it drops straight into his mouth, and he's just kind of holding it in his mouth.
Yeah, and it sounds like an elephant, and he's like,
yeah. And you just think, what was he like as a small boy? His parents must have heard these weird noises coming out of his bedroom all the time. Well, because he must have been experimenting with his voice as a kid.
Yeah. I actually again watched a YouTube video about a beatboxer, and him just being like, when I was a kid, all I did all day was like, whenever someone pressed like a button and it made noise, I would copy that sound. It must have been the most irritating child to have. Like every time there's a noise, it's like beep, beep, and he just would do it. And then he became a beatboxer, and he's one of the most successful beatboxers. But learning to do that is not fun for everyone else around.
Yeah, no, it's bad enough. It's bad enough having a child who's learning to sing or playing the violin. But I think that puts the recorder in its place. That's for sure. Yes,
yeah. But I guess the weird things that's what makes people great. Those things kind of being weirdly obsessive about making strange noises. That's what made them so good at it.
Yeah, and I guess everybody has their own path, their own set of skills, and all the rest of it. I mean, there's I don't know if it's a true story. I'm pretty sure it's true that Ronnie James Dio, who was I don't know if you've done any reactions to him, but he was.
I have. Yeah.
You have. What a voice! A voice! And I mean, it's just like, yeah, dude, you were born like that. You were born that way, and it was just meant to happen. I mean, he's. I think he's probably slightly smaller than you.
Oh, really?
Yeah. He was tiny, with a voice that 10 times his size, and apparently his warm up routine was smoke a joint.
Oh my goodness, yeah. It's so fun. Some people are just like that though. Like, some people are just born able to do it, and I know people who can do all the things that like you shouldn't really do, but it doesn't make a difference. They're just their voice. They're just completely in control of it, and it sounds great. And lucky them.
Yeah, I know. First tour I ever did as a teenager, and the singer in the in the band that we were supporting, Nuclear Assault, was John Connolly, and his voice is just like it's almost like a screech, and I was like coughing and spluttering sort of 4 or 5 days into the tour, and sore throat and all the rest of it, and he was absolutely fine. No warm ups, no nothing. He'd go out there, screech for like an hour and 20 minutes a night, and be absolutely fine. And I'd be feeling it doing sort of 45 minutes a night. It's weird.
Yeah, I find those people though are like weirdly like in tune with how their voice feels. Like they're able to feel all the time, or whether they are pushing or they're doing some sort of damage. Whereas like there's a certain, most people don't. Most people just kind of go for it, and your voice kind of, you push into your voice and you do all sorts of things and don't really pay attention to that. And then some people are just so in tune with it that they kind of don't do things that hurt it. Even if they're making quite extreme sounds, because also all these extreme sounds can be done in a really healthy way. Just some people just do it naturally.
Yeah, and he used to play. He was a guitarist as well, and he always said that his mind was on his guitar playing, and basically the singing just had to, the singing just had to fit with what he was doing, if you know what I mean.
It's so interesting that people. It's such a bizarre thing, and it's so vastly complicated. If you look into actually being able for us to speak, it's so vastly complicated in terms of all the muscles we need to use and how our brain works. It's amazing that we can do that, and that also some people can just jump into it and seem to be just born that way.
Yeah,
I don't know how that occurs, but they can. It's amazing.
Yeah,
in fact, I've actually been reading up about people who are born with savant syndrome, so who you're born with some sort of amazing ability, whether it's singing or playing piano or doing lots of maths or memorizing the phone book. These are all things that people can have. But also, there was a guy who got hit by lightning, and the next day he was able to play piano to concert pianist level. And the fact that you can, your brain, it damaged part of his brain and made a connection between two parts of your brain that it wouldn't normally be there, and it gave him the ability to play the piano. And that's what they think with a lot of people who are born. It's just really interesting. It's just to do with different brain connections. But also, the piano sounds so bizarre because it seems like such a skill that you have to practice. So no one quite understands it.
Yeah, so it's basically it sort of remapped his brain, sort of created neurological links that weren't there before. Yeah,
but then also there's ones like people learning, a language and being able to speak in a language that they didn't know before, and they don't know how that is the case, if it's genetic learning or something like that. But yeah, it's really, really interesting.
Yeah,
some of the skills seem to be kind of imprinted within us. It'd be nice to know how to tap into them.
Yeah, well, it is like that. When they say, some people are predisposed to be good at languages. I mean, let's face it, that's a phrase we've heard all our lives. They're good at languages, or and I struggle with English, and I just think, how the hell do they? How does that work? Is there a kind of a predisposition for these people that for some reason they just have the ability to pick languages up? They pick them up incredibly easy, and is it the same for people who are born singers, or how much of it is are we born with, if you like?
Yeah, it's obviously so hard to tell, and how much of it is it's the classic nature or nurture sort of question, isn't it? And
yeah.
I mean, there certainly are within the kids that I teach. Some kids are just super, super natural, and they, you get the odd kid and you're just you just know how to do this. And other kids aren't like that. Most, it's a real kind of like a bell curve, I suppose. There's some kids who are just instantly amazing, but also it's still the same thing as if you're playing football. If you don't do football all the time, you're not going to become a great footballer.
Yeah.
So even if you were born predisposed, I can't say the word, predisposed. There we go.
Yeah, well done.
There we go. Speaking is hard. To do singing, if you don't do it, then it's still, you still won't become a great singer. It still requires a certain amount of kind of physical work, whether you realize it or not, because singing doesn't feel like physical work, but you're still exercising those muscles, even if you're not doing it in a specifically I'm training sort of way.
Yes, yeah, and yeah. It's basically practice makes perfect, and that that phrase still holds true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no matter how you're kind of born.
Yeah, no matter how many natural advantages you may have.
Yeah. But also, I think the kids who are naturally good at it just then want to do it because it's something they're naturally good at. So. Yeah.
I mean, there's definitely I think a part of that. I mean, it's kind of weird. When I was younger, I used to enjoy singing, and I think I stopped enjoying it when I got a really, really bad review. And the weird thing is, I mean, I had that review 19 years old. I might have told you this last year, actually. And it's amazing how much of an impact that review had on my own attitude towards singing as well. And I kind of put it at the back of the queue. Do you know what I mean? It was kind of like, right, I love everything about being in a band, literally everything, other than the physical act of singing. And I even used to say that to people, but I think I had it kind of kicked out of me almost, if you like. And funnily enough, it was having a couple of lessons with you last year really, really brought back the love that I have for it. And I loved recording our most recent album, and I'd really kind of got in touch with my singing again and really pushed myself, and I was really pleased with what I'd done. And then I was determined that people weren't going to turn up to shows and go, well, he sounds better than ever on record, but let's face it, couldn't pull it off live. And I was determined that no one was going to come away with that. And then coming and seeing you last year and spending that time working with you absolutely brought back my love of singing. So thank you very much.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. And I feel like when you go to singing from that attitude, it often kind of changes people's voices in a positive way as well. I guess when you're not going in from that place of stress.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, put it this way: when we rehearsed before we went away on tour, because it was this time last year, and I was saying to you, look, I want to get I want to be ready for these shows. And when we were in rehearsals, we finished one of the songs that we worked on, New Age Narcissist, with really high notes in the choruses, and we did it at rehearsals, and as soon as we stopped the song, one of the guitarists turned to me and said, do you just want to take it easy because you're banging it out at the moment, and we've got 4 dates in a row to start with. And I'm like, dude, it doesn't matter. I'm like, I've been doing the work, and this is just, I said, I said, it doesn't feel like I'm putting any effort into it. It's just, I'm actually really enjoying singing these songs, and that's what you're picking up on, and that's what you probably have never picked up on before, because I haven't been really enjoying singing them.
Oh, that's so nice to hear. I love that. I love hearing these sort of stories of I guess, yeah, I mean, it's just nice to help. I guess hear that it has made a difference, and it is just nice hearing when people get that freedom within their voice and that enjoyment again, because it's so easy to get bogged down by something that happens, as you say, when you were 19.
Yeah,
that can stick with you for so long, and that little bit of like negativity towards you, and it just really can knock people's confidence.
And that, I think, is exactly what happened to me. It was a loss of confidence, and so, I mean, I think I even had a T-shirt made up. I did have a T-shirt made up saying "I can't sing," and I used to wear it on stage. And it was just like, it was almost like I played into the narrative, and it was like, that was my way of dealing with it. That was my defense mechanism, was to take it on. You know, if you take something on, people can't beat you over the head with it. But in doing so, I took it on 100%, and it seeped into my own confidence and ate it away.
Yeah. It's so tough. It's such a tough industry, like whether it's comedy or music, when you're putting yourself out there all the time, and you are then just left kind of open to people's opinions, and people's opinions, it's, and at 19 as well, it's really hard to take that on and understand that also people may not be right, and it's just an opinion. And I certainly would be the sort of person at that age to have fully just been like, have taken that on and been like, well, that means I'm not good at this thing.
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. And, even as you grow older, it's still something that, like, you have to remind yourself and be like, if you're someone who has to constantly put yourself out there.
Yeah, I mean, just from the... Well, to give you a simple idea of the difference it makes, and certainly for people listening as well, is that song that I was particularly wanting to work on, New Age Narcissist, which had the really high chorus, and I knew we were going to be playing it in the set, and I was dreading it. It was like oh God, it's that next, and it's just like and then doing that work, getting that confidence back, knowing how to get those notes and hit them every time, and for them to be strong and feel confident about it. And every night I was just looking forward to playing that song more than anything, literally like a complete 180 from dreading it to looking forward to it. Because in my head, it's almost like, I want to show off. I want to show off the skills I've relearned. It's and it is a huge difference, because of course that when if you take the lack of confidence in, and you take all of that dread in, that all creates stress and pressure, which are going to make it worse. Yeah.
Well, your voice, your voice is there to communicate your emotions or what you want to say. So if you're feeling stressed, of course that's going to carry into your voice. And if you think about, how your voice reacts to stress in every day, if you're crying and you can't get your voice out, in an extreme emotional situation. But if you're feeling that stress in your body, it does the same when you're, every time you sing and you're feeling stressed, it's going to kind of like choke you, like you would if you were speaking and you were stressed.
Yeah.
So it's so interesting, because our confidence and our emotions are so connected to our voice. And although a lot of my job is like physically, giving people or trying to give people the tools that they can physically use to, achieve notes or whatever, it's also about confidence in themselves, because really that is everything. If you can know everything about singing, but if you don't have confidence, you're not going to be able to. There will become points, at least, that gets in the way. Yeah.
Basically, what we're saying here is stress is bad.
Stress is bad.
Yeah.
Stress is bad. Chill out. That's it.
yeah. Basically, that's it. Enjoy yourself.
Yeah. It's not funny though, isn't it? Like in life, we always do this. Like, I think it's the whole thing as humans. We stress about everything, and it's actually always the thing that gets in the way. I think it's a natural thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I used to be somebody who would procrastinate over decisions. Do you know what I mean? I'm almost proud of myself that you kind of like, well, no, take the situation, weigh up all of the possible outcomes, and try and figure out what to do from there. And then what I realised was what I was doing was I was weighing up all the outcomes. So let's say there's 6 potential outcomes. So I'm trying to weigh those all up and make my decision. And it's like, well, actually, what you've got is you've created 6 problems. If you just make a decision, you'll only have the fallout from that one decision to deal with.
Yeah.
But it takes ages to kind of realise that you're just creating problems where there aren't any, and it all comes back to stress.
It does, and like a lot of the time, because I literally recently did a video on this, but on how my default is, as a person, if I feel like I'm stressed about something, I will kind of like overwork. I will kind of really go towards that thing and be like, right, I'm going to do it 110%, and actually, it's not the best thing, really. Either I end up like not enjoying that thing, or because I've just been so stressed about it the whole time, and like, or like with things like singing, where it's just going to get in your way, I end up like then not doing the job as well anyway. So, and I think there's people on both sides of that. As you say, you can be the other side of being a procrastinator and just step back a little bit from things or delay things. But neither work. And it all comes down to the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and also there's touring as well, and being a touring musician. I mean, it's just the stress and strains of the body, the sleep, the diet, and everything else, and then singing on top of that is just, it's a real strain.
Yeah, and you've got to know yourself and know your limits and know what your voice can handle and what you can handle, and when you can go out, and when some people, as we said earlier, there's some people who can like go out and then do a gig the next day and it just be perfect, and they've just had no sleep and they've been drinking all night, and like I'm not one of those people. I know that, and you have to like find out where your limits are and what works for you. And some of us aren't as lucky that we could just live whatever lifestyle and it be and it still be great the next day, and some people are, and some people that works for them, and that's kind of fine. It's just everyone's really individual with it, but I don't know, a lot of us don't take the time to know our own limits and ourselves and what we need.
And that's a really good point, because I always used to stress about that I basically, first night of tour, I don't sleep. And when I say I don't sleep, I mean I do not sleep. I may shut my eyes for about an hour or something like that, but it's just I don't know what it is, if it's that first night adrenaline that doesn't dissipate, but now I kind of know it's going to happen, and I just deal with it, because I know that what, this has happened so many times and it's never a problem. So it's just something that I've got used to, and I just don't stress about anymore. But again, that was always a concern, because the minute you wake up, not really sleeping, and being at breakfast and just thinking, first thing, right, okay, how's it going to go tonight? Am I going to be okay? And you can't spend 8 hours of the day with that rattling around in your head.
Oh yeah, and then you've just made it worse for yourself.
Yep.
As soon as you worry about something you don't need to.
Oh yeah, no, I'm brilliant at that. It's just overthinking and all of that kind of stuff. It's just that's where I live.
But you don't think that is also part of a performer's personality type? I think performers as people are, we tend to overthink, and we tend to be, maybe quite emotional people, or at least expressive people, maybe in different ways. And we're just complicated beings, I think, that aren't as like, and then we live these lifestyles as well that are even more complicated, and don't always help us live a peaceful life.
Definitely.
But it's okay, because it's just kind of part of being a performer, I guess. But the more, I'm sure you found it, the more you get older, the more you start to kind of balance it out a bit more.
Yeah, no, absolutely, and yes, you're right. You're absolutely right. It's definitely it comes with the territory of being a performer. People often say there must be something wrong with you wanting to get up there and do that. Certainly when I'm doing stand up, and my reply is yes, it's called ADHD. But yeah, there is. I think there is that there is that part of us that where, you know, you want to perform, you want to put yourself out there in the most precarious position because the rewards are extremely high. But you know, you're also aware of the pitfalls, and that makes, well, as you were saying earlier about overcompensating, about working, you know, too hard towards something. And yeah, that's just classic performer thinking, isn't it?
Yeah, because you're like, you want to give yourself opportunities. You're aware that like it's a very precarious sort of lifestyle, and you don't know where work is going to come always next. So you feel like whenever you get it, you should grab onto it.
Yeah.
And if you have a project that you're excited about, you know, you start and you're really excited about it. You want to put everything into it, and then eventually you have to make sure that like it's something that's sustainable, because especially if it's a long-term project, you can't always keep that going forever.
Yes, yeah. You're really talking my language, Beth. I was just nodding away there. When you were saying about, I don't know about you, but I have a massive amount of enthusiasm for projects, you know, as they start at the beginning.
Yeah.
And then, and then, you know, when you're in a position where you think, wow, wouldn't it be great if this could become a thing one day? And before you know it, it has become a thing. But that's not the goal anymore. The goal's moved. And now it's like, wow, I always wanted to be in this position, but now I'm in this position. I want to be in that position. And yeah, when you were talking earlier as well, right at the beginning, about like just kind of changing the channel a bit and, you know, sort of doing different kind of videos and stuff like that. It's about keeping yourself interested, isn't it? It's about keeping yourself focused and constantly. I have to be constantly challenged, or I'll lose interest. Yes,
absolutely. And every time I want to throw everything into it, this time I'm being better. I'm trying to like. I say that, but like I used to, like, for years, like I did not take like a day off ever. I would just be like, I'm gonna, you know, if I wasn't working, especially when I was younger and I had to do a lot of bar work and things like that. So if I wasn't doing any of those jobs, I was doing something else. And, you know, you're a person who does multiple projects as well. So I'm sure you've done that at points where you just keep on going. And I've eventually got to the point where I'm like, I'm going to take days off, and I'm going to take days off every week, and I'm going to spend them, and like, you know, I do inevitably end up at least thinking about this stuff, because, you know, my work is so part of my life. It's not like a job that I can walk away from, especially if it's something that I am excited about, or I'm writing something. I will go away sometimes and do a little bit, but those days are like only if I really want to, rather than like I am going to do it, you know.
Yeah, funnily enough, I was going to say to you, I know I find myself in this position where you've sat down, you've assigned, inverted commas, quiet time, as it were. But in your brain, there's a part of your brain going, isn't there something you should be doing?
Yeah. I know I'm really bad, so I can't help but start doing something. As soon as it's like quiet time, I'm like, maybe I should you know, I could just write a little bit of this.
Yeah.
I am really bad at that, but my boyfriend tells me off.
Yeah, well, good on him, because it is you kind of do get that kind of like, right, okay, it's quiet time, I'm going to relax, chill out, forget about that, clear your mind, great, wonderful. And then this little voice will go, yeah, but now would be the ideal time to do a little bit of this.
yeah, exactly. And I don't know, I am definitely a person as well that, like, if I haven't finished my tasks, it's as a definite, like, I get the guilt, and then I feel bad about taking the time off. So I often have to be a little bit more aware. I think that's the only thing, the downside for me on taking time off. I need to make sure that I do get stuff done. Otherwise, I'll feel guilty in my time off for taking that time off. So I need to make sure that I do get, like, whatever it is that I've decided in my head, even though it's sometimes like silly. Or, you know what, the weirdest thing is, if I just take it out of my calendar sometimes, as a thing to do, I have like a little, like, this needs to be done calendar. If I take that out, then my mind then is kind of weirdly happy with that sometimes. So it just, as long as it isn't somewhere written down.
Yeah, but that's, you see, what you've done there is you've created a coping mechanism, and you've kind of realised, you've realised that there's an issue, and you've identified that there's an issue, and you've come up with a coping mechanism / solution, and that is that's incredibly positive, especially when you're self-employed, because ultimately everyone always says, oh, self-employed, that must be great, not working for not working for anybody. And it's like, well, yeah, on the one hand, yeah, but on the other hand, it means I'm always at work.
Yeah. It only suits certain types of people, I think. Self-employed. Yeah. It really suits some people, and I think I have always been self-employed in some way, and I don't really know any different. So for me, it feels like. And I don't think I could be completely structured into the times of I don't know. I like things like sleeping in the morning as well. So start my day late and then work quite late. Yeah,
sleeping in is generally frowned upon in the workplace.
Yeah. I'll sleep at 12 and then I'll work later. It's not allowed. But I don't know. I like that flexibility a lot more. But I think there's just a balance that's really hard to strike all the time, and you have to constantly adjust it to where you are in each moment. But being freelance, you do have the opportunity to do that. You can just be like, right, well, I will take this time off, or I won't take this time off because I need to do some extra work in there because it isn't so structured. So
yeah, and I think work-life balance is easier to. Oh God, be careful here. It's easier and harder when you're self-employed, because you're having basically if you're in full-time employment, your work-life balance is when you're not at work, that's your life. It's not something that needs to be planned or handled or anything like that. Whereas if you're self-employed, you can technically always be at work or always not be at work. So you do need to kind of keep an eye on it and again create some kind of structure, because as human beings we do like boundaries and structure.
Yeah, we do. But it's also quite hard, because I'm sure you're the same. Sometimes, a lot of the time, my work doesn't really feel like work. It feels like a fun thing to do. Yeah. And then also, so it isn't the same thing. You go to your day and you don't really like that part of your day, and then that's what you just have to do, and then you leave. It's oh well, it's a really fun thing to do, And also, a lot of it isn't as simple as, I get paid for this hour of work. You do a certain amount of it, and often, for me, I'll put out, a video, you'll put out a record, and, something will happen, and you'll get money back later from that thing. So it's not the same kind of transaction that you'll get. It's really hard, because there's really blurred lines into what is life and what is work.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. Well, look, we've gone quite heavily into being self-employed. I want to rattle off some quick questions, and feel free to say no, I'm not going to answer that, because some of these are deliberately mischievous. I warn you. So first up, is there anybody that you've ever taught where you've just thought, look, I basically don't like you, so I'm not going to teach you anymore?
Yes. Yeah, well...
yeah, well, thanks a lot.
Yes, it was Howard. No, being a YouTube internet person, there's a lot of interesting people. Right now, what kind of happens, to be honest, is my schedule's pretty full, so... people kind of have to email, but when I first had stuff online, it would be anyone who I tell a bizarre story about someone. I don't know, will they ever listen? Probably not. There's
Go on.
There was a person who once turned up to a lesson, and obviously they could just book online, and they were, I think, in Australia or New Zealand, somewhere over that side, and they turned up and I was concerned they might be naked. Turns out they weren't naked. They were just sitting there topless and really, really bizarre, and then being well, I don't really want to sing. And I was like, what's happening? Why are you here? Why have you paid for this lesson? And then he was like, went to go and stand up, and I was like, oh God, I think he might be naked. Because he was topless, and then he put his leg over to cross his leg, and I could see his knee. And I was like, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway. that was someone I didn't want to teach again.
yeah. That sounds like the kind of service you don't want to offer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I was like, he wasn't naked, but it was really weird.
Yeah, ever so slightly. Is there, and I guess really, when you were talking about children earlier, and I'm assuming this has to have happened, where you've got a child, you've got a child that's been sent for a lesson, and you're sat there thinking, yeah, you can't sing, and this is just, this child's being pushed into it by a parent, and really, you just need to kind of go, look, this isn't happening.
I think there are definitely... I don't think I've ever really taught a child that really, really cannot sing in any way. And I think children are so, when they're young, are pretty able to learn. So
yeah.
They do... And if you're making the lessons kind of fun enough, really, then actually you can normally engage them in a way that is fine. I do think there are can be expectations from parents and things, but I would say nothing that has been intensely harrowing for the child, hopefully.
Oh, thank goodness for that. And have you ever turned down a singing lesson for somebody for whatever reason without even them actually having a lesson? Is there anybody that you've just kind of gone, look, no, I'm not doing it?
Well, only because stuff gets too busy. So yeah, in that sense, that when I've been too busy, it has been like, well, when I have a free slot. But generally, not really. I'm very open to teaching people who from whatever, because I'm teaching people who are professionals, people working in musical theatre, people who are in training, people who are in bands, people who are complete beginners, people who just want to sing karaoke, people who just want to learn to pitch in the most basic sense. And all of these things I think are, I feel like some people just want to teach professionals, or some people just want to teach beginners, and I feel like all of these things are helpful. So as long as I can be helpful, I don't really mind.
And that also that keeps your I think that keeps your appreciation of what people can do across the board as well, doesn't it? Rather than just concentrating on the elite or intermediates, you're dealing with people from beginners to professionals. That it keeps you on your toes.
Yeah, and it means lessons are really, really different, and we're focusing on completely different things. What I work with someone who's a professional is going to be completely different from someone who just wants to sing with their family, and they have completely different goals, and that's what's interesting about it as well.
Have you ever done a lesson with somebody who's actually on the road, on tour at the time, online? So they'd be look, can I grab a session whilst we're away?
I don't think I've done an online session to someone on tour. I've done before gig sessions where I'll go to the session and do a warm up and go through the song and stuff like that. But I haven't. So I haven't done an online one like that though.
That's very hands on. So you go to sound check and work through things with them. Yeah,
exactly. So often I'll be have my plugged into their in-ears, so I'll have my in-ears and I'll get their mix, and I can have a listen to their mix and then listen to whatever's going out front, or and just make sure everything's okay for them, and go through to the warm-up, as I say, and go through the songs and capture anything that they're worried about and make sure that it's all going well. A lot of big artists, none of the people are absolutely massive, but some of the people, the big artists, do that for TV gigs. If they've got a pressureful TV gig that's live, that's like a thing that often they'll bring a vocal coach on board to help them out, to make sure it's okay. Because I think there's so much pressure in those circumstances.
Right, and we're back to pressure and stress again, aren't we? You know, where you're brought in as I'm not playing your role down, but a vocal coach is brought in as to make that person feel better straight away, reducing the stress. Yeah,
making it less pressureful for them so that they can perform.
Yeah.
At their best. So they'll have often like a choreographer and people who are looking after all the other aspects.
Yeah, and I'm interested. Were you kind of how did you end up doing some of the reaction videos to metal bands? Was it is it a kind of music that you've dipped in and out of over the years, or what made you go down that route?
Well, I was always as a teenager more into metal and stuff like that, and it's definitely like very Scotland. Like, people in Scotland are a lot more into metal than I feel like.
Oh, I know. Okay,
maybe it isn't just my perception. So I feel like it's something that I did grow up with, and then obviously when I moved down to London and I was around a bunch of musical theatre people, then I ended up not so much. And it actually just felt like a kind of dipping into stuff that I listened to when I was younger, which was quite nice. And it just came from suggestions, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember those songs. Ah, cool. So actually it has led me to like a whole kind of new side, because the people I was working with before were more theatre or like more, I guess, like pop singers, and that now a lot of my clients are metal singers, and it's just it's been really nice to kind of move between different genres more.
Wow, what you mean? I'm not your only metal client. That's
You're not my only metal client, no.
Oh, right. I'm distraught. Wow, that is really interesting. Now, I know what you mean about Scotland. I mean, Glasgow is a big city for us. Edinburgh was a big city for us back in the day.
Okay.
We were supposed to be playing. We were even getting out to Dundee. We were supposed to be in Dundee this year. But that's been rebooked, and I think next year we've got Glasgow, Dundee. I think there's a possibility of trying to get to Aberdeen, but it's it's unlikely. But back in the day, you're talking to somebody who's performed in a metal band on tour in Alloa. That is, believe you me, there are not many people who can say that.
Yes.
It's absolutely bizarre.
Yeah, I mean, people just love it here. I think there's like quite a strong folk and metal like combination of like, there seems to be a lot of people who are into folk also into metal, and obviously there's like a whole genre of folk metal anyway. But and so I think that they kind of go hand in hand quite well. And just because of all that folk music that everyone's listening to up here, it seems to also just work well with those sorts of people. But yeah, it's so nice to be doing, I guess, it feels very natural. It feels like quite a natural progression, weirdly, to go back to a lot of metal for me.
Oh, that's really cool. That's really, and do you find that that you get a lot of response, because you know how passionate metal fans are, and do you see a kind of a good level of engagement when you're doing a metal video?
Oh, the metal ones are always the biggest ones. People are like, metal fans are like, more metal. Which, so yeah, definitely, I think that the metal ones do go down really well, for sure.
Yeah, I was kind of pushing you towards that because I thought that might be the case. But the thing is, we're also really evangelical metal fans, and it's like, if some, I mean, I think that might be how I found your video channel. It was either our guitarist who told me about it, or I told him about it. But that's invariably how you find these things. When when metal fans get into something, they want to tell every other metal fan in the world about it, and you've got to go and watch it and see it and experience it. And that that's obviously borne out by the fact that there's so many reactions when you do post them.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I think that the metal community is such a kind of close-knit and strong community. It's really nice, actually, to see how... Well, I set up a little chat with some of my students and stuff. Actually, you should join my chat. I forgot.
Oh, right, okay.
I've got like a Discord thing for my students, and everyone's completely into metal, and then there's like one guy who's like really into country, and I find it quite funny to like watch their conversations.
Brilliant.
Yeah, so it's like a really kind of diverse crowd of pupils that I teach. It's kind of just funny.
Yeah, that is great. Well, look, I would I would love to I'd love to join. And look, Beth, I mean, I can't thank you enough for your time. I really appreciate you doing this. I really do. And this is probably going to go out over Christmas because I'm putting together some Christmas specials at the moment. And I'm just trying to kind of speak to people who are around the music business and around bands as opposed to being in them, which is the volume, I do most interviews with people in bands. So yeah, I can't thank you enough for doing this, and just talking to you again as well has made me want to do another bloody lesson.
Well, you can come and do an online one.
Well, do you know what? I'd love to, but my neighbours not so much. And once again, thank you so much, not only for your time today, but those lessons really made a difference, and I've been wanting to get you on the podcast for ages, so thank you.
No worries, it was a pleasure.
And it was a pleasure for me as well, and hopefully it was a pleasure for you guys too. I really, really enjoyed that. I hope you did too. And I am going to be definitely getting some more lessons again. Well, once we get near playing some shows again, which hopefully will not be too far away. Let's just all hang in there. Everything will be all right. As I always say, everything will be all right in the end. And if it's not all right, it's not the end. And it's not my quote, it's somebody else's, but there you go. Here's another ridiculous quote for you. It's not... Oh God, no, I can't remember the ridiculous quote. Oh, how fucking annoying is that? It was something about only a... Oh, this is the end, only a sausage has two. It's something like that. It's German, and you hear these things, they stick in your brain, and then you say them on the podcast and can't actually remember them and make a complete fucking mess of it. But there you go. That's what I've managed to do there, isn't it? Look, as always, it's been a pleasure. Now there will be another one of these coming your way between Christmas and New Year to keep you interested and to keep you from getting bored. And as always, I love doing these. I love doing these podcasts, and as I always say, you guys are my main promotional tool, so please do spread the word, share the podcast, tell everybody you know. We've got some wonderful guests lined up for next year, and it's just going to be another year. I mean, the Sepultura thing was a real kind of first for the podcast, hoping to do more of those kind of exclusive hookups with bands, and it's all set to be a really, really cool year. So please do keep listening, keep supporting the podcast. Can't thank you enough. I really, really can't. So find me on social media, Talking Bollocks on Instagram, on Facebook, on Twitter. If you put in Talking Bollocks and you can't find, just look for the mic on fire and you'll see it. Now, also in the description of this podcast, I will put a link through to Beth's YouTube channel, which is absolutely superb. Definitely check that out, because she's brilliant, and that's how I ended up hooking up with her as a singing teacher. She's great. Her insight is wonderful, as you know, because you've just listened to that interview. And I'm doing what I hate about all other podcasts, which is they do an interview and then they sit there and talk about it and pull it apart, and you just think, well, I've just bloody listened to it, let me make my own bloody conclusions. Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent, as I like to do. So this is the end. Thank you very much, and I will speak to you again very soon.